Hi there, welcome back to the Ginescast. I'm your host, Gina.annunziato. Thank you so much for joining me. This is my very first interview-esque podcast, which I'm very excited to bring you, and hopefully I can do more of these, the more topics that come my way. This is going to be the final podcast I'm doing on this channel. I am moving all my Ginescast content to my alternate channel, which is just my first name, Gina.annunziato. So please look in the description for that link and please subscribe to it, because how else are you going to listen to the Ginescast? I don't know. Maybe on iTunes coming up? I still have to figure it out, but we'll get there. So without further ado, please enjoy the Ginescast number 15, a slice of the LGBT pie. I wasn't putting off this podcast due to laziness or anything of the sort. I think when I go into something, I have a very clear idea in my mind, but it all fizzles out once I actually start piecing things together. And I don't see this as a bad thing necessarily. I'd rather kind of find the path instead of seeing it all laid out in front of me. So when I first began the cast to interview people, I had specific questions I wanted to ask members of the LGBT community. I wanted to get their takes on the state of things in current year 2018 from a perspective that I do not possess myself. And I got plenty of answers, which is exactly what I set out to do. So please let me introduce you to the fine people that I spoke to.
So my name's Andrew.
My name is Shane.
My name is Carolina.
Just call me Joe from here on or something.
I'm Chris Cipollini.
My name is Bobby. I am 22.
I'm 22.
21 years old.
28 years old.
21.
I am 33 and a half. I live in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Long Island, New York.
I'm from Sheffield in England.
California.
So I live in Heredia, Costa Rica. Yes, I am 100% lesbian.
I consider myself to have same-sex attraction.
I am a gay man.
I'm old school. I just say gay.
Homosexual.
I identify as a gay male. I am a musician.
I work as a project manager.
I am currently a part-time writer, and I also am a caption aid assistant 40 hours a week.
I am a cashier.
I am a humble server busser at a restaurant.
I've changed my major like 6 times. I don't even know what I want to do, but it's biology right now.
Now, I spent anywhere from a half hour to an hour recording everyone. Everyone was given the same core 8 questions with some branching off here and there. I strive for organic and natural conversations. But somewhere down the line, I felt like I was doing a personal switcheroo on what I intended. I wanted to get perspectives from LGBT people, but for some reason, I felt like I wasn't personally being as authentic as I could be about it. At some point, their sexuality was meaningless to me, for lack of a better word. I just kind of wanted to talk to people, to have a conversation about society and their perceptions of it. And it's not their fault by any means. I just kind of kept feeling like I was forcing a conversation onto people. It was this quote from Carolina that really drove this home for me. Okay, so first question is kind of, I'd like to hear your story about, when you discovered your sexuality, what that was like, where you found your support, and where you're finding support today.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of it's a story that we tell 100 times.
That really stuck with me. Having to explain something that's not really anybody's business as a means to, I guess, validate you in others' eyes in a way. I mean, straight people don't have to explain I'm straight. And at this point, why do gay people? Is it not just a given in current year 2018 that, some people are gay? Why is this still a major talking point? If you looked at me from about a decade ago, when I found out someone was gay, I never necessarily treated them differently, but I did look at them differently. And I can admit this to you now because A, I don't feel this way anymore, and B, it explains my evolution of thinking. It was more along the lines of someone else doing something that's not what you do, so you pin it as odd or out of the norm instead of realizing it's not your life, so why judge? And that's something you only learn as you mature and I guess actually talk to people, not just through 280 characters on Twitter or your Tumblr hug box. When it comes to LGBT issues, I'm not going to sit here and tell people, okay, whatever, you have rights now, so like get over it. That isn't smart and it isn't fair. There's still parts of the country and the world, let's be honest, that do not accept homosexuality. In fact, in some countries, you can be killed just for being gay. So the fact that gay people have a community they are universally welcomed into in order to receive support and help figure things out that they may not be getting from other, close familial sources, that's a positive to me and to others as well.
Like, obviously the main strive of the community is inclusion and trying to find acceptance for people who have like a minority sexuality or gender identity and all this sort of stuff. And it's supposed to be a place where these people who are quote unquote different can try and belong and feel like they have somewhere with people to talk to who sort of relate to their struggles and stuff like that. So that, in a sense, that is a good thing.
This is a country that's extremely religious, and people usually use that as like a cover. I don't think it's because they're religious that they are homophobes. I do think there's a lot of homophobes in Costa Rica. I think it's like an excuse. There's a lot of people who are working on like homeless shelters for gay teens who've been kicked out of their house. There's a lot of people who are really confused and that they may be even married or they may be even just starting their lives and they feel awkward, they feel uncomfortable, they don't know why.
There's a place for, people who don't have it that well at their home to kind of go out and become like, hey, get this friend group and have a bunch of support around you and people that, care about you and love you and like understand what you're going through. That's great. That's always wonderful.
We have our faults. We're like America in a way. We have our faults. God knows we do, but when push comes to shove, we come together beautifully, and I think that our just tribal need to just be together and to just assuage each other's pains and stuff in times of grief is beautiful, and I think that's a big pro thing.
However, being on the outskirts of this community seems to be a growing issue that's not talked about as much.
I'm just going to put it this way. I don't like gay bars. I've never been to a Pride festival.
I feel like because of how overly sexualized a lot of the Pride events can be, especially with me, because I have a background of problems with anxiety and stuff like that, I feel very sort of judged in that sort of environment because maybe I don't dress the same as a lot of them. I don't go out in makeup. I don't do a lot of the things that a lot of the LGBT community would do to sort of celebrate their identity. And therefore, in a very odd way, I kind of stand out from that because I'm not taking part in a lot of it.
I think most of the gay people just want to be treated like normal people. We don't want any special treatment. We don't want any medals just for being gay.
It's like having a parade for having brown eyes or, being olive-skinned, or I just don't get it. George Carlin said once in a comedy routine, he's like, pride is something that, gay pride is like, pride is something that you earn through something you've gone out and achieved, not something that you are by default.
I'm going to say this. It shouldn't even be celebrated because it's just a sexual preference. Why are we celebrating a sexual preference? The straight people don't celebrate their sexual preference. Why should we? Why should we be prideful of this sexuality? We're no different than anybody else. We just have a sexual preference.
I don't really consider myself a member of the LGBT because of the views that they have, and that if you are at all differing to these views, you are dead to them. I have never gone to a single Pride event my whole life. And I won't. And every year it is more and more degrading. Like, I have straight friends that went with their boyfriends more than I know gay people that went to these things.
Currently, it's gotten to a point where anything, like the littlest thing, has to be addressed, and everything is a huge scandal, and everything is like the worst thing that ever happened, and it's really tiresome too.
We should be so much stronger from all the shit that we've been through in the past. Like, oh yeah, we have all this great stuff happening. Let's kind of be bitches about everything.
From an observational standpoint, there seems to be a kind of set-in-stone mindset about who gay people are on the whole. But if we're told everything exists on a spectrum, does that not also extend to personal beliefs? It seems very simple when I'm saying it to you, but in some people's minds, it's not that simple. A majority of the interviewees spoke about feeling underrepresentation, particularly for not adhering to how the media specifically portrays gay people.
I've seen it on TV series because I watch a lot of TV from America and movies and things like that. Gay people can't be bad people. Gay people can't be wrong. Gay people are always smart and always pretty, and they're always intelligent and well-spoken. And it comes to a point where it's almost like impossible to live up to those expectations.
We're portrayed as like basically Sex in the City. Irritating. We're overly effeminate. We're bitchy, basically PMS all day, every day. People are kind of like sheep. They will automatically think every single person in the community is like that, which is probably why a lot of people don't like gay people, is because we're portrayed as such irritating, like floating fairy fags all over the freaking screen. Like, oh God, here that bitch comes on the screen. I don't want to watch this movie anymore.
Let's just imagine media was all just turned off one day. Cell phones, no internet, just no cell phones. It's like 1990s all over again. Then what happens to all the representation?
It's gotten to the point where it's so within our community and so inculcated within modern society now, because it's reinforced by the internet. It's reinforced by, the mindset, this hashtag mindset. And I feel, we have this technology, which is a fabulous thing to use. I mean, in its core, Facebook, Tumblr, so on, social media is an incredible tool, and we use it for this vitriol of back and forth. We're the right people, you're the wrong people.
I commented on this advertisement on Facebook, just like, why am I getting this advertisement for a gay movie? Is it just because I'm gay? And also, I commented, not to mention that these guys in the movie that are like they're beautiful. One, they're so skinny. They are like all models. And I got called some of the worst things I have ever been called in my life, like mob style.
Again, I think it was last year over in the US, where a New York business got fined, I think, $250,000 just because I think it was the manager or the boss accidentally misgendered one of their staff members, and obviously they got sued this massive amount of money for a mistake. And it's stuff like that I think can, when it comes across on the media, I think it can put a really negative light on the community.
It's all just ideas, and is this person getting enough representation according to this person?
And although we can't necessarily always pay attention to the media, it's still there, and it's still, in a sense, shoved in our faces, whether we like to admit it or not, or accept that or not. So obviously you're going to see things that occur and that people take into heart that you just want to say, no, that's not how things really are. There is also a pervasive sense that people may be pushing for way too many liberties instead of being able to call out the bad behavior in your camp. There's this kind of mindset that it's over-inclusive, where you're accepting people for their just basic human right of being a person, but not realizing that what they're doing is harmful. And this topic of pedophilia, which is something that is kind of making the rounds online right now, this discussion, this debate that's kind of permeating through online circles, it seems to be that this is an issue where, of course, it's not the majority of people, but it's loud enough that it's making waves.
I am so conservative to that degree that I almost can't even discuss it with people that try to defend it. And when I see an 8-year-old in drag being like at a pride event or a fashion show with all these grown adults fawning over them, I'm kind of incredibly uncomfortable.
Because of how sexualized the community can be, kind of trying to teach children about that oftentimes can drag them into that part of it, which I think is quite dangerous. Because as much as it is important to teach kids about sexual education and all this sort of stuff, wait until they're at the right age. Getting them involved in the community so young can maybe show them things that maybe they really shouldn't know at their age.
We're making it trendy to be gay. We're making it trendy to have this like 10-year-old drag queens, 10-year-old transgender people.
Recently started this movement for like acceptance of pedophiles in some points. I mean, it's really unpopular, but it's really worrisome to me that it can gain traction if people frame it in a good way. And I hate it so much. And it's what gets the most attention.
I didn't go to Pride, but I saw signs that were all like, stop bashing pedophilia, pedosexuality, and I'm like, all right, this is the downfall. Like, if there was ever a time for me to go to Pride, it was before this and never again.
I do wonder about the pedophilia issue, because I don't think it's as widespread as Reddit makes it out to be. But I gotta raise my eyebrows when I see this push for a fabulous 10-year-old drag queen, or performing sexual reassignment surgery on people younger than 18. These are issues that feel almost taboo for me, a straight person, to talk about, but I'm an observer, and I feel like my sentiments are being shared by people who, I guess, have the right to speak on it, if you're gonna, put things into labels or whatever. I don't know if this is a constant of those who have specifically followed me and my content for years, but I did get a sense that the people who I spoke to felt like others were speaking for them, and I'm really, really trying hard not to do that right now. There's a very prominent, loud voice out there that's supposedly representing the gay community, and this exists especially online. They are the perpetually offended blue checkmarks who raise a stink every time they feel personally wronged by someone else's actions. But just because you are part of a larger community, does that give you the right to speak for another person? Even if you're not part of the gay community, or frankly any community. I don't think you have the governance to ever speak for anyone other than yourself, unless there's been some kind of consensus that, yes, you can air our grievances, oh leader. But why is it we listen to these self-designated leaders of these tribalistic groups first, rather than actually being as inclusive as the group portrays themselves to be, and actually hearing all these unheard voices that exist and have the right to exist?
We're becoming so sensitive to every little thing. Every little word people are getting offended by.
It's always the same people with like the same group of friends and following, and all of which just aren't afraid to tell someone with a different view to kill themselves or something.
People from the gay community start with trying to push this like weird like Z and Zer and things like that, where it's like so confusing and it's so needless, and it really muddies the water for real problems that are still happening. It's gonna come to a tipping point where there's gonna be bad people who are gay and there's gonna be ugly people who are gay, and it's gonna come around. I think it's just that we're at this stage where people are trying to overcorrect. I think
they use their sexuality and their orientation or presumed orientation it's an ego trip. It's nothing but an ego bolster. I have a big time aversion to groupthink. I always have. And you get all these people together and they have this big bully pulpit. You're not going to have a dialogue with someone when they're doing that. They're puffing their freaking chests out like freaking pigeons. They're like, just having their moment, having their ego stroke. There's no chance that you're going to have any kind of dialogue with someone when they're in that frame of mind.
Obviously, all these new ideas or new ideologies have sort of been pressed forward. I think it kind of makes the LGBTQ plus community in a way its own enemy, because they're trying to push all these new ideas to try and make everyone feel included, or to try and push these labels. But then the people who aren't in the community and aren't necessarily as caught up they're just drowning in all these new things, and then they start to, again, there's all this pushback because they're like, oh, why do we have to do this? It's for a minority group. Why should we care? Stuff like this. And I find that tends to happen more when, again, it gets forced in people's faces a lot more. And in that sense, I do think the community is kind of hurting itself.
I don't want to paint it so negatively, the sky's always gray, but from what I am seeing, it is just not getting any better. And the topics that they are up in arms about are just so unimportant. They just are not welcoming of anybody unless you are. They advertise all you have to do is be an ally or a member of the LG, or a gay, lesbian, whatever, to be in the LGBT. But no, you actually have to be one of all the letters in that acronym, and you have to sign your life away to the basically Naziistic fucking views that they have of free speech.
Are we at the point yet where the loudest among us can just stop telling us how to feel? What is it that makes these blue check marks on Twitter the arbiters of how gay people should be? Even CEO Jack Dorsey in a recent CNN interview said that Twitter is not the arbiter of truth. But why is it that this platform allows that mindset to permeate? And if I'm going to hold myself to standards that I've set, it's important for me to give all voices a chance. And one interviewee, I learned a lot about reparative therapy, which is something that I hadn't really spent too much time on. It's something that I'm told is terrible and bad and awful and never should exist, and I would agree if people are being forced into it. But what about those who choose to change their life as they see fit? Do they not deserve a voice too?
It kind of started with Freud, all the way up to today with the recently deceased Joseph Nicolosi, who studied this. I was going through his work, and I just see all these parallels between his description on the development of same-sex attraction and my own personal experience. I don't like the total disregard for any evidence that would go against what is the LGBT philosophy. It's always you're born with it, you're born that way. It's always nature, it's never nurture. So what happens then if you have all of these millions of years of evolution behind it going towards continuing the species, and then somebody is not attracted to the sex that's going to continue the species? So what exactly happens there? And I see a lot in the LGBT community that they don't want to ask why. They're not interested.
So do you think that there's maybe kind of a taboo in asking these kinds of questions? That, because to be fair, that we kind of live in the moment, so some people don't want to figure out why, but there's a select people that absolutely do want to figure out why and explain our behavior.
I mean, you see it in legislation now. My state, California, recently banned any the public sale of any literature on the subject of reparative therapy for same-sex attraction. Reparative therapy is one of those dirty words in the LGBT community. They associate it with trying to force change people's sexuality and kind of electroshock stuff and weird lock them in a closet or show them lesbian porn until they like it. It's not that. So reparative therapy isn't directly trying to change these same-sex attractions themselves. It's trying to teach the person how to remain in a safe assertion, being confident, being able to have healthy relationships with other men, knowing, being affirmed in your own masculinity. And you notice that when people are in this state, that the same-sex attractions disappear.
Where is this idea that, conversion camps are gonna, lock you in a room and, electroshock therapy you into submission? Where does that idea come from? Because what you're explaining to me, it doesn't sound bad. It just sounds like working on interpersonal relationships and being comfortable with yourself, being able to understand why You may think a certain way or have feelings in a certain way. That's what that sounds like to me.
You know, somebody in the LGBT community might have that and not recognize it. I know I'm making kind of an assumption there, but as I said, I'm kind of giving my case. So that's one thing I think contributes just to the militancy of it, because they don't see any way out of it.
But isn't it fair to say that, you know, some people don't want out? they're perfectly happy like with doing their thing.
Oh, absolutely.
Everyone I spoke to is an individual. I may have asked the same questions to everyone, but they all branched out in their own special ways. And this is why this podcast just became difficult for me to finish. I don't want to highlight these people just because they're gay. I want to highlight them because they're people. Everyone has feelings and thoughts about who they are and what they observe around them. That's something that never stops. But it feels like to me that we're pushing this kind of visibility of people's sexuality as the sole purpose of what their personality is. We're seeing just the sexuality, just the gayness, the bisexualness, the transness, the gayness, but not the people behind it. You don't need a personality when your sexuality is the loudest thing about you. Well, I think the people I spoke to prove that there is much more behind that.
At its core, I still think it's good for us to have this sense of self, and if it manifests in different ways, then so be it. We have to be very, very careful. You know, it's one thing you learn in meditation. You know, it's just the ego can have no place in it. It has to be about purpose, and it can be anything from it can be something that the community can really learn about, but we have to see why are we out there? What are we doing this for? What is the reason you're having this dialogue? What are you seeking? Are you using it as a reason to bolster your ego and be like, hey, look at me, look how I'm loud and proud? Or are you doing it to be like, hi guys, I am here and I want to tell you my story?
It has come to a point where we're just yelling at each other through a fence, and we're just surrounding ourselves with people who agree with us in both ends of the political spectrum. And it's really counterproductive. No one's learning anything new. No one's growing as a person. No one's questioning their beliefs. They are just, oh, you know, I read something the other day, so I know I'm right. And so just communicating with people, sitting in a room and talking to someone that you completely disagree with, and find out that you have so many things in common.
Instead of opening your hole, open your fucking mind and your mouth and think and talk. Be a person.
Try to accept things that you maybe don't understand, but do it in your own time. Don't force it on someone. Just let them come to terms with it themselves. Because sort of shouting about it and yelling at them to do it isn't going to make them do it any sooner.
People do care about what is said about them, and I think if they all just took personal responsibility and like looked at things through a different scope once in a while, like try and understand why the stereotypical conservative might not like gay guys or gay people at all, because he was grown up believing that way, and he may not know anybody that is like that, and he may not have as open of a mind as you, and that's perfectly okay. And you can't just basically demonize an entire population. I don't even want to say group, but like a population of people that just are different from you, because that's exactly what the people you're demonizing are doing.
I still feel odd, personally, this is just me being personal, I feel odd that the only reason I initially spoke to anyone was based on their sexuality, but thankfully I got to know some pretty awesome people, if only for a brief amount of time. The biggest takeaway for me is that I wish we just collectively get to a point where we see the person before the preferences. And the only way we'll be able to do that is by first allowing your personality to develop naturally. Because once you do that, you'll start to find you are attracting other people who have done the same work that you've done. And those people, you'll find, are the ones who stick around the longest.
My role is just to be my most genuine self. I mean, that sounds maybe a little, I'm not trying to sound pompous, it's just
No, that's perfect.
It's like, and that's why I like you, because you're yourself without apology. But that's why I followed you since 2011, like a weirdo.
Thank you.
Oh, you're awesome. You put out a good product, and I like it. And now I'm on it, so sweet.
Yes.
But tell Sadie I said hi, by the way.
I will. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. It was a doozy for me to do, but I really hope that you like it. I really do enjoy interviewing people. I had such a nice time speaking with everyone that I spoke to, and, doors still open if you want to chat about whatever. I don't care. So again, my content will be shifting over to the new Gina.annunziato channel, because I think that, while this channel will still exist and I'll still put content on it, I can't grow the way that I want to and get the podcast out there more if I don't kind of wipe the slate clean and start anew. So if you could please subscribe to that channel. Please let people know that I'm doing the cast over there, and we'll just keep on trucking, I guess. The Ginescast comes out every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the new channel. If you like this video, please give it a like, please leave a comment below, or share it with someone that you think would like it. If you want more from me, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Twitch at HelloGines, or shoot me an email at gina.annunziato@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Ginescast. I'm your host, Gina Annunziato, and I'll see you next time. Take care.